for all to see. The signs we've lost our way. When we jail our heroes and applaud our villains and turn our hearts away. Like a silent choir, too scared to sing the anthem of a braver day. The ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix.
And here we are, brother. This is episode 82. Hey, look, episode 82.
And I noticed you started right on the counter, counting down to 0. So you are a punctual chappy.
Well, many people probably don't know that I finish. I scramble through work to try and finish work, and I'm generally joining just a couple of minutes before we go live, pal? So it is what it is, and here we are, and underprepared, but plus I'm noticing I'm blowing up here a bit. I was just saying to you before that my immune system's taking a bit of a kick. I'm burning the candle at both ends, but I was just going to put it out there, Bruce, because I'm in South Australia. We've got the algae bloom stuff happening, got lots of stuff happening. I was going to put it out there to people on the west coast of Adelaide, down towards the Flurio and others. If you happen to live in Adelaide and you're sort of flaring up with your allergies or your eczema or your dermatitis or whatever it is, if anybody else is, I'd love to hear about it and know about it, whether it could be related to the toxic stuff that's floating around in the oceans at the moment, or whether it's just stuff floating around, or it's the time of the year because it's spring and it is that bit of stuff floating around. So anyway, I thought I'd throw it out there, or maybe it's just me burning the candle at both ends, Bruce, and just my immune system's been taking a bit of a hit, and there you go, got a bit of a flare up happening. But anyway, didn't have time to do my makeup today.
Interesting thought.
Yeah, well, it's always good, man. Always bring you some. Oh, Carla's on time. What the heck? What happened here? McLaren. Carla's in Adelaide. That's why she's. There we go.
Gone wrong.
Hey, well, good to see you, Carla, for a change. Yeah, no excuses today. You're actually here. Good to see. And your week's been good, brother?
Yep, nothing special to report.
There you go. No one's bought you the sippy cup yet. The design hasn't gone out to the closed store, the B store, and you're still having to drink out of your musket glass. So don't spill it on your laptop, brother.
Does the B store have sippy cups?
Oh, they might have to. Someone might have to design it. Anyway, so it looks like Facebook's cracking along. We've got people on Facebook here at the moment, which is good. Got some wheels going off. That that interview that we did, that discussion with Elizabeth, you and myself, is really getting a bit of traction and getting a lot of conversations going. And the one I just recently did as well with Professor Ian Brighthope, who's an amazing, beautiful human being. Got a good heart. And that's kind of going off a little bit as well, which is good to see. So it's not all in vain, not doing this for nothing, which is nice to see.
Yep.
What do you reckon? We crack into it. How are we looking today, mate? We've got a big one. What are we going to crack it into another 2 hours, or are we going to get it under 2 hours today, or what do you reckon?
We never get it under 2 hours anymore. We've got an awful lot. This is the government overreach section. We seem to have absolutely chock-a-blocked it with stories about government overreach this week.
Funny about that, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot of that going around, Bruce. So.
Totally.
Well, maybe if I don't flap my gums too much, mate, it might come closer to that 2 hours than normal. But anyway, I haven't got much anyway. I just wanted a couple of things. Because I've kind of been really underprepared for today, but I did want to mention, and I haven't even shared my screen yet. That's how much I was rushing to get on air today. Oh dear! But anyway, let's have a look at this. Just wanted to highlight this. This is let's have a look. There we are. In Adelaide, just a couple of Adelaide things. So the bill, the Saving Viable Babies, bill is being presented again, and got a little bit of a get together on Wednesday evening at Parliament House. So this is a bill, Bruce, that's gone backwards and forwards along many times, been voted down, but we found there's been a lot of compromise come about this bill now. So what it's saying now is they're asking for babies under 23 over 23 weeks. If the baby is healthy and viable, that it be allowed to be given a live birth and saved, and then adopted out or fostered out, even if mum happens to suffer massive mental health or physical health, rather than aborting, killing the baby after 23 weeks, and giving birth to a deceased baby in whatever form, and it's terrible. If people have seen the process behind that, but what this is asking is that babies who are healthy and viable to be given the opportunity to be born alive, and then mum can get on her way and try and heal as much as possible after these things, and the baby also gets to live. So it's kind of about saving both. It's on Wednesday, 12th of November, 5:30 p.m. On the Parliament steps there for people in South Australia. The other thing I was also going to just highlight, because tomorrow, you probably know all about this, being an ex-Defence Force person. It's Remembrance Day tomorrow, so this is a little thing sent through from my place here in South Australia as well. 10:30 Adelaide National War Memorial, Corner North Terrace and Kintore Avenue in Adelaide. And then after the service, there's a group of people intending to walk to Parliament House to begin the 11th mass action against stripping away our freedoms, government tyranny, mass corruption, digital ID, and mainstream media. So that's an encouragement for people if they do want to do that, knowing that people have lost their lives in the most horrendous ways in the past. So that is tomorrow there. And just another quick thing wanted to share, just from a good mate who helped me with the baby's case, Peter Pham, when I was looking at the mandates for kids in care. Peter Pham is a human rights lawyer, and he's just done a little bit of a Substack article on Mark's Method. That's his law firm. He's a human rights lawyer in regards to the social media ban for kids comes into place 1 month from today. And he posits, is digital ID here? And he writes into that as a principal lawyer of Mark's Method, as well as a research fellow and consultant at Mark's Method, to put that together. So if people are interested, they can read that article there on Substack, which we seem to get a fair bit of traction and free space from not being censored a lot on the Substack, which seems to be good. So thought I'd share that as well. But just that's it for me, Bruce. But I did want to just quickly read something, mate, and talking about the Remembrance Day tomorrow. I actually purchased Anthony. I purchased Tony Abbott's book called Australia, and I've been sort of reading that, and I haven't, I'm a busy person and don't make enough time to read, and I know that you're an avid reader and you've lots of books, you're a historian and all that sort of stuff, and I've sort of been making a point to read a bit more lately. But I just wanted to read a little section out of the book that was just talking about the Great War, and it's got here this little section: the final battle for the Australians took place on 5th of October, when they captured the village of Montbretagne with heavy casualties. On the 11th of November, the armistice took effect. The Australian contribution to the Western Front remains a stellar achievement. Australian forces made up less than 10% of the British Expeditionary Force, but in the decisive final months won 22% of ground gained and captured 23% of prisoners and 24% of artillery. These victories should rank with Gallipoli in the Australian story of the Great War. It was a nightmarish struggle for the future of Europe and the world, but the worst of times brought out the best in us. And just wanted to read that. Obviously, tomorrow's Remembrance Day, but I just wanted to be a little bit of inspiration for the small percentage, and it's probably more now, of Australians that have stood their ground for the last 5 years. I salute you. You're about as stronger warriors and fighters and battlers for Australian and the way of our way of life and the defence of our freedoms and liberties as anybody else that's fought in the past. Obviously, haven't given flesh and blood, and it was a terrible thing there. So it's almost pretty hard to compare it. But we are at war. We're at in a war that isn't with guns and bullets and that. We are in a war against tyranny, global tyranny. And to all my fellow Australians who have borne this battle for the last 5 years and suffered immense othering, I salute you, and I'm proud to stand in the trenches next to you, as I do with you, Bruce. That's why I love our catch-ups, and as you've said before, the friendships that we've made over the last 5 years will go, will be like blood lost in the trenches, I believe. And I'm happy to stand in the trenches side by side with you too, brother. So God bless you, my friend. So over to you.
Yeah, look, 100%, Mark, and I will feature at the end of the show the thoughts of a UK 100-year-old veteran when he was asked about his thoughts about Remembrance Day tomorrow, and I'll show you what he said, which was not what the UK media were expecting. So he went off script a bit, so I'll show that. And of course, we are at war, and I've mentioned in the past all of the elements of war were deployed against us during COVID. So we had curfews, we had border controls, we had armed troops in the streets, we had armoured vehicles in the streets, we had a command economy, we had censorship, we had propaganda, and we had weaponry deployed against the civilians. So no doubt about it, we are at war, and that's ongoing. That's ongoing.
Yep. It is ongoing, so ultimately we'll keep doing what we can in our capacity, Bruce. Which weekly we come together and we share some news, and I'm doing what I can in my capacity, and everybody's busy with their own life trying to do what they can. It's not like we're cashed up, from the billionaires that are trying to change the social structure of our society. We're not paid by those type of people as others are, so we do our bit off our own bat and our own time. So there we go. So, and thank you to all the people that continue to join us on our little journey through this. So yeah, got a fair few more comments on Facebook coming through on the comments, so good to see. But I am seeing Argyle Barry has just put a post in off Rumble. I'm not sure whether it's off the Cafe Locked Out Rumble or whether that's the South Australian focus, Argyle Barry. But anyway, doesn't look like anything on X yet. But we are streaming. We're meant to be streaming on X, my X, Facebook, Cafe Locked Out, and South Australian Focus for anybody that kind of loses stream on one of those other platforms. So over to you, my friend.
Alrighty, then I'll kick into the usual in a minute, but I might just hit this comment before it becomes lost to us. So, Love the Awakening saying, I was thinking about buying more bullion, precious metals, gold and silver, but if things go south and I need to cash it to live on, they will have to make payment into my bank. How do we access that if they use bail-in laws, freezes, etc.? Well, first off, gold and silver is money. You don't necessarily have to turn it into currency, into government dollars to use it. And to give you a good example of that, I've recently had a number of tradies around at my place quoting or looking at significant works, concreting, painting, etc. And I've said to more than one of them, would you be interested in part payment in gold or silver? And all of them said, absolutely. None of them said, oh, no, you'll have to cash it in. What's that? So tradies already understand the irregular economy, and they understand ways of avoiding predatory theft on their money, taxes and so forth. And so already in Australia, which is still reasonably functional under a government money system, already there are some people who know that gold and silver is money and will take it. So you don't necessarily have to turn it into government money to use it. And if things get bad, if they get Zimbabwe bad or Venezuela bad, trust me, people will, within a week, will learn the value of gold and silver, even if they know nothing about it right now. When their bank accounts are closed, when they can't get anything out of the wall, when they see the value of their dollars sort of racing downwards, they'll learn. So gold and silver is money, and I'd really be storing it for use in the future when it functioned as money rather than as some sort of exchangeable for fiat currency item for the future.
Yep. Yep. And lots of things are going to change into the future.
Yeah, all right. So let's kick into the show, shall we?
82. And there's you doing bloody two-wheelers in your car and the rally car. Good on you.
Now, I put that up for a reason, and that's a shout out to an old friend of mine, Alex, who actually SMS'd me during the week. And he was a friend of mine in the Adelaide Hills going back 5, 6, 7 years when I was an ordinary citizen doing ordinary citizen things like playing with race cars. And Alex was an excellent engineer, and he used to build the cages for my cars, but he was a local, so I knew him quite well. And he was a good Christian man, and apparently he watches the show, and he pinged me. Although he did say he watched the show sometimes. So I think what's really the story is I think he's probably joining you in Faith. What's your other stream called? Faith,
Culture, Politics in Australia with Mark. Yeah, that's where I had the. Sorry, go.
Not Faith, Hope, and Charity, because I've heard of that.
Yeah, no, that's me. That's me as well at the moment with my following. But anyway, I'm a charity case.
So knowing that Alex, hello Alex, was not only a superb engineer but also a good Christian man, I rather wonder whether he sort of came over to this podcast having seen you and your other one. So
well, that's nice to know. Well, I think the Ian Brighthope interview and the one that we did with Elizabeth and some others I'm doing are probably resonating with a few people. So that's nice to see. And at the moment, they're staying up on YouTube from what I can see, albeit the reach is heavily reduced. I'd imagine they'd be onto us. So.
Oh, and look at that! I'm going to just pop that comment up again about the 22 caliber round. So. Friends in Argentina in the early aughts had their children exchanging 22 caliber rounds at the local store for chocolate. Now, a little bit of history there. So going back to the Wild West in the US in the 1800s, if you went into a bar, one of those saloon towns with the dirt floors and horses outside and the wooden boardwalks, you could walk up to the barman and get a shot of whiskey. Now, the reason that the Americans tended to drink hard spirits, whereas in contrast, the English, the headstock, were much more beer consumers, was because you had to transport your alcohol from wherever it was made out into the boonies, out into the Wild West. And transporting water was something that was heavy and difficult. So they had more of a tradition of drinking spirits because they're a much more concentrated form of alcohol than the English, who were drinking beer because they weren't tracking it all around the country. And at the same time, you could exchange a bullet for a shot of whiskey. So you could pull your 44 or whatever bullet you have in your bandolier, you could put one of those on the bar and swap it for a shot glass of whiskey, and that's why it's called a shot glass.
There you go. Another little history lesson, geez, for nothing. Thanks for that. Thanks for nothing. Eh? That's good.
True story there. So yeah, swapping a 22 for chocolate's probably just the same thing, isn't it?
That's probably all the bloody 22 is worth these days, though, isn't it?
Well, 22 caliber bullets are not as cheap as they used to be. All righties. Okay, where are we? Back to us. So where are we going this week? Not Easy Being Green gets a run with more fires and an update on Bovair, which is apparently killing the Danish cattle that they're giving it to. A little bit of health story with a bit of a warning for our resident vaxophile, Dr. Dan. It says that the use of AI rather than ONI is reducing human cognitive performance. And we know that Dr. Dan likes to grok us relentlessly in real time whenever we mention anything he might be interested in. He rolls out grok to debunk us, which is a failed debating term anyway, because that's what's called appealing to authority. You say, you're wrong because the expert said you're wrong. And the expert's quoting is grok. Okay.
Yes, the experts.
Oh dear, did the English show me that one again? Did the English swap up both or a schooner? I rather think not. Well, another little story about the English in beer. Back in the day, water supplies were not particularly safe in England, before we had town supplies and tight controls. And so you're always at risk of getting dysentery or some sort of waterborne disease if you ate water. So again, the English had a bit of a tradition of drinking very dilute beer instead of water. And that was called small beer to distinguish it from full-strength beer. And that's another term that's entered day-to-day use. If something is small beer, it's not very important.
Okay, yeah, that's a good term. There you go. Small beer and warm beer, apparently, from what I hear.
And shot glasses.
Shot glasses.
Right. The old government overreach segment could really take up the whole show. So the Australian government's intervening in the electricity pricing market by deeming that retailers have to supply free electricity for 3 hours a day. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to use the previous story about dropping rural speed limits for Zicker for our safety. And it's turned out that it might be for our safety, but you know what? They've also factored in the fact that it's for the planet's safety, because one of the stated benefits of lowering speed limits is that fuel consumption will be less and therefore CO2 production will be less. So I'm going to look into that. And just yesterday, horrible story that's been brewing in Canada for the best part of a year, where the Canadian government has just forcibly culled 400 fit and healthy ostriches because last year 2 of them PCR tested positive for avian flu. So that's worked its way through the courts, and finally the Supreme Court of Canada has refused to hear the case, as a result of which the Canadian government swept in and slaughtered all the birds, healthy birds.
Yeah, and I was going to mention that in my little beginning intro, but then I was almost 100% guaranteed, and you've just proven me right that you were going to cover it. So I didn't want to get a gazump strike straight off the bat with that. So I thought, no, Bruce is definitely going to cover that, because we've covered the chickens culling over that BS, and it all, I tell you what, Canada seems to be like, we often talk about Australia and Victoria and stuff like that, and how diabolical they were, but Canada, geez, I tell you what, I think Canada's got to be right up there with the most tyrannical, hasn't it? Right, it's got to be.
Yep, the Five Eyes countries, with the possible exception of parts of the US. So the Five Eyes is a military alliance that shares intelligence amongst former British Empire descendants. So it's the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Who's the fifth one?
Oh, good question there. Five Eyes, America, UK, Australia, New Zealand. Yeah.
America, of course, is the fifth.
Canada, yeah, that's right.
So yeah, they're all, with the exception of parts of the US, they've all been particularly draconian over recent times. Moving on to MISC, a little bit of an update on the story about the 2 US Navy aircraft that crashed in the South China Sea, only 30 minutes apart. We've got a zombie story out with the old, the gender pay gap has morphed into the gender pain gap. And that was a story in Victoria this week. And finally, in Uslam, more trans madness, with a television presenter in the UK being censured, for on the fly saying pregnant women when the teleprompter said pregnant persons.
Oh my gosh! So he defaulted to the actual right term instead of the,
and they've actually been sanctioned for doing that because they transgressed some rule.
Wow, unbelievable what people do these days. Disgusting how they want to label people males and females. It's just terrible these days.
Misinformation.
Apparently.
All right, let's kick in. Not easy being green. And guess what's in Not Easy Being Green this week?
Well, it'd have to be wind farms, wouldn't it? Oh, there we go.
No, close.
Oh, solar panels. Oh, that's right. There we
More,
go.
more electrical fires. So this story from the UK says that solar panels are catching fire every second day in the UK, which is a 60% increase in the rate they were getting a couple of years ago. And it's no surprise because they've been pushing these things out in the UK even harder than here. And so you've got lots of distributed systems. So rather than producing your electricity in a plant where it's all tightly controlled and engineers are in charge of it, now everybody's producing electricity on their roofs. So you've got thousands or maybe tens, hundreds of thousands of little electrical power stations all over the place without engineering oversight and obviously questionable, in some cases, standards for their installs. And so, not surprisingly, that's electrical infrastructure. It can overheat, get faults, be installed incorrectly, etc. And that's what happened. With a rise in the rates of solar panel fires, and this isn't batteries, this is the panels themselves catching fire, and 60% rise in 2 years reported in the UK.
Oh, 60%. Holy dooly. That's a fair bit. Well, more and more they push towards this rooftop solar and everybody going that way and add it up to the smart meters and all that sort of fun stuff.
No one could have predicted this, mate.
Yeah. And Gail's asking whether it have something to do with where they're made, and they're predominantly made in China as well, aren't they? And,
yes, of course.
And we have covered stories.
Hailstorms.
And we've covered.
Why would having
that.
a glass panel pointed at the sky be vulnerable to hailstorms? I don't know what you're talking
about. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? And we covered that a few months ago. There was this massive hailstorm that obliterated a massive solar farm, didn't it? So yeah.
No one could have predicted this.
Not at all.
And in a related story, in that it's an electrical fire, there's been another power bank fire in relation to aviation, and this is in Australia as well. Although fortunately, the power bank caught fire in the passenger's pocket while he was still sitting in the Qantas business lounge. So he hadn't got on the aircraft yet, but caught fire in his pocket and burned him. He was injured by it. So yet again, we've got a battery fire, and this is an inevitable consequence of storing electricity in small compact devices. If you get a fault in that small device, then the fault creates a short circuit which self-ignites, and it keeps feeding a fire until the energy is discharged. You put it out, it'll reignite again. It's a self-igniting, self-fueling thing. Now, why is this relevant? Because they're pushing us towards electric vehicles, and your average electrical vehicle might have not one battery in it. You know, its big slab of batteries in the floor might have thousands, 6, 8, 10,000 individual cells in it. And a failure in one of them, either due to damage or manufacturing fault or degradation, can ignite the whole lot, and it does. Now, not saying batteries are bad. I'm saying batteries have intrinsic risks, particularly lithium batteries, unlike the old dry cells that we used to put. And we are completely ignoring that in the force, the mad rush to force everybody to use this instead of other forms of energy storage that we used to use, such as petroleum, such as diesel, petrol, etc.
Yeah, and that's all because of the mad scam of anthropogenic global warming.
Now, I predict it won't be very long before they'll actually ban you from taking power banks and similar aboard aircraft at all. Already, in most cases, you have to carry the battery with you and you have to put it in the seat pocket in front of you, so it can be identified if there's a fire. Not allowed to be in your checked baggage in the hold, and there've been aircraft crash because of lithium battery fires in holds. And it's not allowed to be in your carry-on luggage in the overhead. And again, in recent times, we've seen several examples of that, including on a flight that was on descent into, was either Perth or Launceston recently. And of course, phones and computers have got these batteries in them too. So I predict that before long, you'll be having to get some sort of fire-resistant pouch and basically watch the bloody things in flight so they can get at them.
Yep. Lead boxes, and so what else can you do with them? Can't. Who's going to touch them when they start bloody on fire? You can't.
Yep. Okay, so what we've got here is more safe and effective news, again, part of the Green Dream. This story says that the Bovaer mandates, which have been rolled out across Denmark, and we've discussed them, there are certainly some Bovaer being used here. Well, this is now reportedly causing illness, deaths, and lower milk yields in Danish cattle. So to review the backstory, their wise rulers and our wise rulers thought that they could ignore millennia of development in the bovine digestive system and change the way that it works. So I'm just going to read a bit from the story. So here's the premise for giving Bovaer to cattle. So microbes in the cow's rumen digest food, producing hydrogen and carbon dioxide, which methanogenic, so bacteria that produce methane, microbes convert into methane by a series of enzyme reactions. Bovaer is a feed supplement. No, it's not. It's a drug. They are drugging our cattle. You know, a supplement is a bit of extra food that you put in your food. A chemical that inactivates an enzyme is a drug. So we are drugging these cattle with Bovaer, which blocks the enzyme that these bacteria use to produce methane. So the way that we get less methane out of the cow is we poison their digestive system by drugging them. Now, fear not, that sounds bad when I say it, but fear not, because Bovaer is apparently safe and effective. Because the story also says Bovaer consistently reduces methane emissions, so there's the effective bit, and is safe for the cow and not transferred into milk or meat. So there's the safe bit. So like so many of these things, Bovaer is marketed as safe and effective, and yet here we go, the actual end users are reporting health problems from it. Now, there's a reason why cows adopted this form of metabolism. It's because over millennia, they experimented and found this was the best way to turn foliage, grass, into energy. They're not producing methane just because nobody told them not to. It is the most efficient and healthy way of digesting for that cow. And if you poison them with a drug to stop it, hardly surprising that health effects might flow from it. And indeed, they are.
Of course.
Now, here's a fun fact. Whilst cows are significant methane producers, and by the way, do you know what methane is? There's another name for methane. I only discovered this a couple of days ago.
Oh, well, if you only discovered it a couple of days ago, I have no clue, Bruce.
I should have known.
Was it fart?
Another name for methane is natural gas.
Oh, there you go. Well, natural gas is, I was quite right. I was just a bit more crass about it.
And I found out this the other day because I did a site visit with the CFA, Country Fire Authority here in Victoria, where we went to one of the pipeline controlling stations for the gas distributors. So we had some visibility on, what might happen if there's a fire or a fault with a pipeline. And while we're doing it, I thought, what the hell is natural gas? And I sort of looked it up. It's methane. Methane is natural gas. Now, you'd be aware, of course, that oil fields produce a lot of natural gas too. In fact, we often pipe it off and use it. So again, even if we eliminated all of the methane produced by cows, there are so many other sources. And by the way, it appears that methane production is virtually a compulsory product of turning grass into energy. And whilst cows are a significant producer, producing about 5% of biological methane, termites produce just as much, because termites also take wood and they turn it into energy. And in digesting that, they emit methane as well. And in fact, they emit as much methane as cattle. So even if we were to totally eliminate cattle production of methane. We've still got an equally big problem with termites. And trust me, from personal experience, it is very hard to eliminate termites.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kangaroos also produce methane, not as much unit per unit as a cow, but there are a lot of kangaroos in Australia. So we're going to have to look at getting rid of them as well if we want to seriously address biological production of methane. And of course, the rest of the world's going to be in a bit of a quandary there, because we from time to time get sanctioned by the goodies in Europe, who don't like the fact that sometimes kangaroos get culled for food.
Mm.
Well, we're going to have to cull them for the planet now, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And finally, I've said that methane appears to be a inevitable consequence of turning vegetable matter into energy. And so we probably should start banning vegans as well, I rather think.
Yeah, that's right. Vegans, vegetarians. Yes. Can I test that out? I had a family member that went vegan for a while.
We do have a vegan in the show, and I can't remember who that is. But yeah, I remember in the past we've had somebody wave their hand and say, "Yeah, I'm a vegan." So there you go.
Yeah, I don't know. Yes, I have.
Righto,
Yes.
where are we? Okay. And I'm sure you'll be happy to know that this year is already stacking up to be one of the 3 hottest years on record, same as every other year I can remember. It does look like they're going to tell us that this year was the hottest year ever as well. What do you think?
Yes, it's always going to be the hottest year ever. It reminds me of our minister over here, Premier Peter Malinowskis, talking about how terrible it was in one of his little 30-second grab about the science is settled and that we're making the right choice and moving ahead to net zero 2027. Bruce, right?
Well, net zero is a fraud anyway. You're either zero or you're not. If they put the word net in there, it means they're doing some sort of mathematical chicanery, but that's a story for another day. But regarding this prediction that this is going to be one of the 3 hottest years ever, reference the discussion we had last week about modelling. And I just want to ask, is this a real prediction or is this some sort of model-created prediction?
No, it's got to be these models. We've talked ad nauseum about all these models, haven't we?
And answer to Gail there about volcanoes. Yet volcanoes produce vast amounts of methane, because methane comes from deep in the crust of the earth and rises towards the surface. And if you have a massive volcanic explosion such that the deep magma can spew out into the air very quickly, it comes out as methane. If it bubbles to the surface relatively slowly, like in those slow lava flows you see in Hawaii and Iceland, well, that methane's got time to combine with oxygen in the magma flow and get converted into something else. But do you know what it gets converted into?
No.
CO2.
Oh, of course.
So it doesn't seem like there's any way out of this problem, does there?
No, we're stuffed. Either way.
Anyway, reference the prediction that we're going to have one of the 3 hottest years ever. I seriously hope that this eventuality from last week doesn't put a spanner in that, because last week Melbourne had their coldest November day in 80 years.
Yeah, it just flashed up a few comments from people saying that we haven't hit summer yet and people sleeping with a couple of doonas still. Yes, what is that?
Look, I think you're right. It was 18 degrees here in Victoria today. Like, it was cloudy, so it wasn't warm. And tomorrow's predicted 15. And what are we? 3 weeks off summer.
Yeah. Yeah, figure.
So are we going to ignore that, or are we going to just say, oh, that's just weather, whereas if it's the hottest day, of course, it's climate change?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but we had global cooling as well. They've taken a bet each way. It used to be global warming, but they had to change it because it didn't suit the narrative. So now it's just climate change. It's like it can change from day to day. That's it covers their bases, Bruce.
Exactly. All right, on into health. And not a lot in health this week, but we do have a heads up here for our favourite resident vaxophile and grokkist, Dr. Dan. who loves grokking us in real time. And there's a couple of examples from the message
Oh,
threads in the past.
you've been to the X thread, Bruce. You've been to the X thread.
Now, bit of bad luck or a bit of bad news for old Dan MMR fan, because apparently using AI rots your brain.
Yeah.
And this story says that using artificial intelligence instead of nutting stuff out yourself doesn't just make your brain lazy, it reprograms it and impairs its function. So that might be a bit of bad news. So what do the stories say? EEG brain scans revealed weakened neural connectivity, reduced memory recall, and a persistent drop in brain activity even after the participants stopped using AI. So it sounds like there are long-lasting cognitive deficits result from over-grokking us. Just a warning to others.
Over large language modeling, I say. Well, that's it. That's where all the young ones and people are going now. It's all going to that. I wonder if it's just not, part of the bigger plan that they're all working on, is to dumb down the population, drug them up, keep them busy, give them easy research.
Name one thing that our wise rulers have done or pushed on us in the last century that's done the opposite to that, made people smarter and more self-reliant. I can't think of anything.
No. I tend to agree. Everything seems to be designed to diminish our population almost.
All right. Look, personally, I don't doubt that AI does make your brains in the very least lazy. And I'll point to a couple of examples. Who remembers phone numbers anymore?
Only my own.
I remember a phone number from when I was a kid. In fact, I remember
Wow.
several phone numbers from when I was a kid. And I do remember my own mobile phone number now, but I don't know anybody else's phone number. And same for mapping. Who remembers how to drive a certain route? No, you just plug it into your GPS now.
Yeah.
So I rather think that rings true.
Yeah, well, when in my early days, in my early 20s, I used to work for an old Australian company called IPEC, and I used to do deliveries around Sydney, up around Mossman, St Leonards, up in the northern beaches of Sydney, and that was quite a few years back. And all I had was a map and pages, and I had to use to look up where I'm going and remember that. And if I get stuck, I'd have to pull that out. There's none of this stick a phone on the dash and follow the directions. It was like, sort out all your connotes in order, and then remember the route you got to go, and that's it.
And when I was a medical student, I was a volunteer paramedic in Adelaide as well, when St John used to run the ambulance service at night and on weekends. And the way we would get a call is the phone would ring in the station and they'd give you the job. And you go out and you get in the ambulance, and you know how you found your way to the job? You got out the Gregory's and you looked it up.
That's right, the Gregory's, that's right.
The navigator would navigate the driver into the job. Okay, you go down this road, you're turning right at George Street, it's after Mabel, here's Mabel, 3, 2, 1, turn right here. That's how we did it.
Yep.
Nowadays you get in the car and the mapping is already planned, it's already programmed to the destination, you just follow it.
Yeah, exactly. I remember the Gregory's, but I had a UBD. You remember the UBDs? So they were around the same time. But you're a bit older than me, so the Gregory's were around before the UBDs. Is that right or not?
I think they were both probably a bit of competition in the market, perhaps.
Yep. Yes, Jason, that's correct. That's the acronym that they used to use. And the old IPEC drivers used to be known for driving at night with their lights off and, trying to avoid in the back roads between the states, have their lights off so they could avoid being seen. Yes. Oh, Greg is in there. There you go. Philip's joining us there, the old UBD and Gregory's.
Yep, exactly. I reckon I've still got one somewhere just for the day when everything goes belly up. Of course, it'll be all changed by then, won't it, with the massive rates of road building.
Finance.
Not much going on this week, I'm afraid to say, with gold and silver pretty much flat. Bitcoin down a little, although today it's actually, I'm just going to look that number up now. So I had it down 4%, but the US has ended their government shutdown today, and Bitcoin's up another 2,000 on that. So it suffered from that. I'm guessing that all the people who weren't getting free government money weren't going out and buying Bitcoin. But Bitcoin's a very volatile asset. We've talked about that before. Up or down 5%, 10% means absolutely nothing. With Bitcoin, its long-term trajectory is up.
Well, there you go. A little message there from Carla. You'll be pleased to hear my daughter has her final paramedic exam this Tuesday and Thursday. Wow, her and paramedic in the COVID times. Carla, she must be doing well. Holy dooly.
Yep, and a dear friend of mine in Tassie's just done his entry exams for intensive care paramedic, and you'll be pleased to know that there were sections asking about his knowledge of Indigenous health.
Of course.
I said if he passes, he's dead to me.
You're harsh. You're harsh.
Now, having said that, a couple of weeks ago, when we were talking about gold and silver and the run-up, I do remember saying that the US is either just done or about to add silver to what they call their strategic metals list, which means it's a militarily critical metal. And in fact, story during the week, they have actually done that. So I was wrong. They hadn't done it at the time. They were just about to, and indeed they have. Now, what does this mean? Okay, that's now a strategically critical mineral. So if it suited the government, the next thing they're going to do is they're going to restrict ownership of it. Because if the US government needs silver to build missiles, and there's quite a bit of silver in a missile, as we discussed a few weeks ago, then we certainly don't want the peasants using it for coins, do we? And governments have outlawed the ownership of precious metals in the past, including the US and Australia. And this would presumably allow them to do that again in the future if it suited them. And last time they did it, it suited them because they were stealing everybody's wealth through inflation. They were massively devaluing the currency by overprinting. And they didn't want you escaping that. They were skimming your wealth. They didn't want you ducking that by storing your wealth in something else, like gold or silver. So they made it illegal, and that forced you to keep your money in the banks where they could skim it via inflation and, if necessary, outright steal it. And that's happened in other countries as well.
Yep.
All right.
It's all about the government, not about you.
But the big financial news came out on Melbourne Cup Day last week, and that was that the Reserve Bank has chosen to keep rates steady, holding the official interest rate at 3.6%. They didn't increase it, they didn't decrease it. But that's not the point. The point is not that they held the rate steady. The point is the question I've asked many times. Why the hell does the RBA get to set the price of money? Because the interest rate is the rental price of money. When you go to the bank, you don't borrow money, you rent it, and there's a price. And the government is setting that price. That's price fixing. Why can't the market be left to do that? Why does the government get the right to do that? And the answer, of course, is they control the monetary system. They control the supply of money. Rather than letting the free market do it, which it used to do, they've taken over that function and stuffed it up, I might add, reference the loss of value in the dollar over time. But that's why, because the government, rather than the free market, now controls the money supply. That's why the RBA gets to suddenly tell you every month that you have to pay more for your mortgage. That's what. Doesn't matter if you got a contract with a bank. The RBA, which is an arm of government, even though they claim to be independent, they're not. No, they get to tell you your price has gone up. Sorry. How about that?
Of course they do. Yeah, because they want a monopoly over everything in your life.
Well, don't they? Yes. All right. Now, the reason the RBA held rates steady was because, rather than dropping them, which is the worldwide trend has been for dropping interest rates recently. But the RBA didn't drop them because they noted that inflation had already risen. It had surged, as they said. So the current annualised rate in the last quarter was up to 3.2%, again above their 2 to 3% target, up from what they claimed was 2.1% in the quarter before. So because we were getting inflationary pressures, they had to put the rental price of money up, which stops peasants like you and I renting more money to use, which puts more dollars in the economy, which puts price pressure up.
Mm.
But here's the thing, that's a lie anyway. They told us it was about 3%. Well, guess what? I've got another one of these real world inflation numbers that's come in. And again, it's come in at 10%. And doesn't it always?
Mm-hmm.
So in October, the realtor Ray White reported annual growth in house prices in Australia of 10.6%. So that's a real world 10.6% inflation rate on housing in the very least.
Mm.
And given
You
that
could have predicted
housing is a major cost for everybody, how do we get back from there to 3% if we're paying that much for housing, which is such a major cost? Is everything else negative? I don't think so.
No. Well, who could have predicted that? Who else was mentioning, inflation rates around, 10 to 12%, Bruce? I wonder who that might be.
It always is, isn't it? And doesn't matter, almost every week. And like I said, I don't cherry pick these numbers. Just a number comes out and it says, this has gone up 10%. That's gone up 10%. That's gone up 10%. It's always 10%.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it never 3.1%? What is the RBA measuring for their records?
Yeah, go figure. Go
Right.
figure. It's all just to hide their BS. That's all it is.
On to a rather big segment now, and that's the Govern Me Harder, Daddy government overreach section. And it's a big government section this week.
Well, that never changes. That it seems to be the part of the course these days. That whole govern me harder is the way they do, really.
Nothing ever changes. I mean, there's battery fires every week. Certain things just crop up again and again and again. Anyway, here's an update on the story we did a week or two ago when we looked at the way that the government had created an organised crime problem by pushing the price of cigarettes to the point via taxation, where it was economically viable for organised crime to import untaxed cigarettes from overseas and sell them. And we noted that as much as half of all the ciggies sold in Australia recently have been from this illegal untaxed source, up to half of them. So that's a organised crime problem created by government taxation policy. Now, how's the government dealt with this? Well, we noted a week ago they've set up more government agencies to address it. But the other thing they've done is that the ATO stopped reporting on it, just like they did during COVID. Remember, they stopped reporting on excess deaths. Once the numbers got too big to hide, they just stopped publishing them. Well, same here. Now that the illegal cigarette sales are too big to hide, they just don't tell you what they are. And the story said the ATO is launching a review of the methodology. And in the meantime, they're going to stop reporting on unpaid tobacco excise. In other words, illegal chop cigarettes. So this is just what they did in COVID, isn't it? When the problem gets too big, they just suspend reporting on it. And if they do come back to reporting, it's only after they've modified the methodology, change the way the numbers are made, which is what they did for excess deaths. And now they're going to review how the illegal cigarette sales data are produced. So it's the same thing.
Yeah,
hide the data and then fudge the data, change the definition. Nothing new there.
Yeah. No, this is what they're very good at, throwing the data out there to, mesmerize everybody and frighten everybody, and then hide it from people when you don't want to. So yeah,
when it becomes inconvenient, we just stop.
Inconvenient. Yeah, absolutely. when it becomes inconvenient for the government. People speaking up like, oh, you and I, it'd be very inconvenient. That's why they're trying so hard with all these different censorship laws, Bruce, aren't they?
Yep. So misinformation, disinformation, inconvenient information.
Yep, exactly right.
Now, it's not all bad news, Mark, because here's a bit of good news. So the Federal Minister for Expensive Power, Chris Bowen, is going to address the issue of expensive power using that old socialist communist technique of introducing price controls. So he's going to direct the power producers to provide free power for 3 hours a day.
Yes, I remember seeing that whole story. Oh, that's funny.
Do they have quote marks when it said free?
Yes, yeah, free. Yeah, I was having a little conversation with others during the week about this. It's very, very interesting, and but there's Anyway, I'll let you keep going. You've obviously done a bit of research on this.
Well, let's talk about this. Is price fixing. This is government setting the price of power at zero for 3 hours a day. So it's price fixing. Now, I know that in economic theory, price fixing creates shortages because people who can't make the good for less than whatever the arbitrary price is just don't make it. They don't go, oh, bugger, I've got to make this and sell it at a loss. They say, I'm not doing it. Why would I go to work to lose money? I just won't go. So I asked the Googles, and apologies to Dr. Dan regarding my cognitive dysfunction as a result of AI. But I asked Google, does government price fixing create shortage? And the Google said, yes, it does. Price fixing can create shortages. Although there was a little bit of a wrinkle here because the AI then said that you get the shortages because the government sets the prices too low. So like I said, if they set the price too low and the manufacturers can't make the good at that price, they just don't make it. So they get a shortage. But in fact, with cigarettes, we're getting the opposite. The government is setting the price too high through taxes. So what's instead happening is that a black market is appearing. So producers are stepping outside the government system and selling it outside the official system. That's a black market.
Well, they've got a captured market with smokers. I mean, smoking's quite addictive, and many people that do smoke have addictive personality, and it's very hard for people to give it up. So they've got a captured market, so they attack that captured market. Electricity supplies, force people to take on a system that's much more expensive. What are people going to do? They're going to say, no, I'm going to get an extra blanket out, or I'm going to do whatever, walk around in my jocks or something.
Look, regarding cigarettes, they thought they had a captured market, but they didn't, because
not now.
entrepreneurs have started importing and selling product which bypasses the government's pricing. So they thought they did. And if you can't enforce this in an island nation, which is a long way from anywhere that makes ciggies, it's going to be hard to make it work anywhere, is it?
Yeah, exactly right. Just makes you wonder how hard they're trying. I wonder if people might be involved in the black market trading there, Bruce. I don't know.
No, that would require some sort of corruption in politics.
No, well, that can't be possible then. Sorry, I don't know. I'm giving myself an uppercut. I don't know where that thought come from, mate.
Well, we do have the best people leading us, remember?
Oh, of course we do, yeah. And the best of the best, that's right.
Now, Minister for Expensive Power Bowen's directive that free electricity be provided 3 hours a day is also equivalent to seizing the means of production. So for 3 hours a day, the government is in charge of electricity production and distribution. And seizing the means of production is a key Communist manifesto plank. So private people and private businesses don't own stuff, the government owns it. And so effectively, 3 hours a day, the government owns the electricity generation business. And like I say, that's communism. That's communism.
Yep.
And as mentioned, price fixing creates black markets, and we've discussed that already. But here's another thing, another that was reported in the story, and it reinforces a concern I've had for some time, and that is they will be able to micromanage what you do inside your private dwelling by monitoring it via smart meters. So the story says households with smart meters will be able to run washers and dryers, air conditioning, or any other appliances for free within that 3-hour window. So you've got to have a smart meter, because otherwise they don't know at what time of day it is. You know, the old clock meter doesn't know when you were drawing your power. The exception was we had off-peak power, but you had 2 separate meters. Now, in real time, they'll be able to tell what you're drawing. And the implication of this is not only that, they'll be able to work out what it is. Okay, you've switched an air conditioner on. Okay, and control that via it.
Exactly, right.
So that's another concern about this free power that the Minister for Expensive Electricity is going to provide. And at the risk of repeating myself, could I remind you of another golden rule of economics? And that is, of course, that free stuff is not free. Somebody somewhere pays for it, and that somebody somewhere is probably you. It's probably you, because free stuff isn't free. And indeed, already the initiative was only announced a few days ago, and already we've got this story that says the electricity retailers are seeking cost relief to allow them to give us free power. Now, cost relief means a subsidy. They want to be paid for their free power, in other words. And the other thing that the retailers might have to do is they might have to change the way that they price things during the other 21 hours of the day where they do have control of pricing. And the retailers have said this might force them to increase rates at other times, such as at night. Which, by the way, is when most ordinary citizens need power.
Yep.
You know, that's when you're going to be cooking. That's when you're going to be washing and drying. You're not doing it during the day because you're at work. So again, this is not going to help. It's going to be paid for somewhere.
Yep, exactly right. And that's the sort of stuff that I found out too. But although they were coming back saying, when I was doing a bit of research on that myself, coming back saying that there's rules and regulations in to stop retailers gouging that way and upping their prices, and it's been controlled by the energy regulator, the national energy regulator, and all this sort of stuff. But it's a lot of BS. They'll just filter it out across the 24-hour period. They'll just incrementally put up some prices to make up for that, that shortfall where they're not going to get anything.
Of course, unless we've got very wise administrators just making sure that nothing like that happens in the system. So we'd have to have a whole lot of public servants making sure that didn't happen, right? Because they're wise and all-knowing.
Yeah, no, that's right. So we've got some really good bureaucrats in charge. I'm pretty sure they'll get on top of that, Bruce. We've seen it so many times before, haven't we? They're actually right on top of these sorts of things.
Top men. All right. So I think, given all those problems, I think we should just stick to what we're already doing, which is tried and tested. And that's to have the government pay our power bills.
Yes,
nothing can go wrong there, right?
Which is in fact us, isn't it, Bruce?
Well, no, because this story, in fact, only yesterday said that Albo's considering extending the $150 power bill rebate. So they're going to extend that scheme for government paying for our power bills.
Yeah, that's nice. So the retailer gets money because we've talked about this before. The price is different to cost, isn't it? So I'm pretty sure you're going to go over that at the moment. I'm not going to gazump you.
What I am going to go over is it's time that we ran this slide again. Free stuff is free. When the government gives you something, they took it from you earlier. And after they took it from you, they skimmed off a certain amount for profit and corruption and expenses. And then they gave some of it back to you. And so that'll be the same here. Free stuff costs more than paying for it yourself.
Yeah.
Is that Albo?
when you had the elbow photo up. Sorry, I had a bit of a chuckle there. And then Carla's got here, in interesting system in Bali, we buy electric like we used to buy phone credit. It switches off when your money runs out. It's sort of fun. Yeah, as long
You
as it's
must
not
have a
bloody
smart
turning off
meter.
the power to your, turning off the power to the hot tub on the roof, Carla, hey?
Dear, oh dear. Oh dear. All right, now here's another example of government overreach, because the Australian government has announced that private businesses are going to have to produce Australian content. So the story goes on to say that they're going to mandate, there's that word again, they're going to mandate that content providers like Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime and so forth are going to have to produce between 7.5% and 10% Australian content as part of their business model. So the government is reaching in and telling private businesses what they have to do. And I've already mentioned the word communism. Well, this is an example of fascism, because in fascism, the government doesn't steal the means of production, but it only allows companies to operate if they do what the government says. So the fascists understood that private citizens ran businesses better than governments did. So they didn't steal them, which is what the communists did. They just stole all the means of production. That means companies. Fascism, you're allowed to keep your company, but you were then told what you could do with it by the government. So in this case, where the government is telling Netflix or Prime or whatever that they have to make 7.5% to 10% Australian content, that's a 7.5% to 10% fascism tariff on that business. And of course, the Australian government is at least semi-fascist, and we saw that during the COVID era, where if you wanted to operate your business during the COVID restrictions, you had to either be Bunnings, in which case you could do what you like, or if you're a smaller business, you could have a certain number of patrons. They had to stand up, masks on, masks off, take away only, you name it. Remember all the restrictions? So if you wanted to operate your business during those, you could only do it provided you did it the way the government directed. So, yep, sadly, there's elements of fascism and communism in the Australian government at the moment, and, of course, socialist. I'm sure the Labor government would agree that they're socialist and be proud of it, but they're actually worse. They're worse in those two axes that we've talked about.
Exactly right. And it's funny about mandate, because you look at mandate, it's like, if its mandate is has legal authority, if it's part of an existing sort of law, they use the health orders, the public health orders and stuff to put mandates in place and that, right? So a legislator passes a law allowing health department to take emergency actions. During an emergency, the health department issues a mask mandate. Under that law, the mandate is enforceable because it is backed up by a valid law. A company issues a mandate requiring employees to follow certain rules. This is not a law, it's an internal policy. A mandate is an order, a law is a statute. But you know what, that just got me thinking about, I was in the health system, I was in the disability sector, and so many people, there was those public health orders, but it got me thinking to places like Woolworths, massive company. The health directives during that time didn't apply to retail workers, but they put in place mandates. It's like if enough people stood up, they were actually pushing very heavily against this, as it being illegal. But the human rights commissions and all these law firms, legal cases went nowhere. But technically, when you look at it, places like Woolworths that were only retailers had never had any valid possibility to legally enforce mandates to their staff.
And no court cared.
No court cared at all. Absolutely. Failed us miserably.
No standing.
Yep. That's happened all the way through. Hey, Tommy
Robinson. So a bit of a win for the people. So moving on to the next story. Tommy Robinson has been an outspoken critic of the UK government for quite some time. And he discusses a number of the issues that we discuss, particularly culturally incompatible immigration. As a result of which he's got a big target on his back, and he's been framed and harassed by the UK government on several occasions at least. But on this occasion, he's had a win because he's successfully defended terrorism charges in court. Backstory to that, I think he was crossing a border, I think coming back into the UK, and he was asked to unlock his phone so they could read his messages at the border control point. And he said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm a journalist, and to do so would reveal my sources.
Mm-hmm.
So a bit like a doctor saying, I'm not handing over my patient's medical records because they're confidential, or a priest saying, I'm not telling you anything that happens in the confessional. So he was arrested and charged with terrorism charges on that basis. Now, after a considerable period of time, he's actually won that case in court, which is good to hear. So it's a rare win for the ordinary citizen against a domineering government.
Ezra Levant here for Rebel News. I'm standing outside Westminster Magistrates Court. Huge news today. Tommy Robinson acquitted of charges under the Terrorism Act. The judge blistering in his criticism of the police, saying they lacked credibility and their testimony could not be relied on. In fact, the judge went further, saying that he believed that the primary reason the police arrested, detained, and interrogated Tommy in the first place was because of his political views, which is a protected characteristic in the UK. That is, you can't go after someone just because of their politics or their religion. And in fact, the police had no recollection of any questions they asked about terrorism. The judge particularly blunt about that. It's very encouraging for Tommy to be acquitted, because sometimes you feel like you have to give up on the system, that maybe Tommy can't get a fair trial anywhere in the UK. Today is proof that sometimes the system does work. And this is the second time Tommy has been successful at this very courthouse. Now, that still leaves Tommy behind. He spent countless hours on this, all the stress. Last night, he didn't know if he would be going home or going to prison. So it's a win for Tommy, but it doesn't get him further ahead. But hopefully the judge's bold comments will wake up the police and tell them, stop your multi-million-pound vendetta against Tommy Robinson. He's a political force. He's not a force of terrorism. And how about fix the problems in the country instead of going after the guy who highlights the problems? For all my reports today, go to TommyTrial.com.
Yep.
Well said there. And I resonate with one of the things he said, which is that Tommy went to court not knowing whether he was going home after it or to jail. And I know what that feels like.
Mm-hmm.
So I know what that feels like. So a rare win for a regime critic granted by the courts, and something that I've also been successful with in the past. But I tell you what, it's stressful. You've got the entire lead weight of the state arrayed against you. And as we've discovered, and as this report suggested, it's a corrupt system where the police are prepared to lie and fabricate evidence and threaten and harass you outside of the bounds of the law. So.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, definitely, we've covered that plenty of times. We've got some interviews of, obviously, a lengthy discussion of you and I talking about your experiences through that AFP case in Canberra and all that, and how you were targeted even by the police being sent to your home on the behest of, I think, still in the Liberal shadow cabinet. I believe he's still in there. He was the Attorney General at the time, Josh Teague, targeted by him for challenging on COVID things. So yeah, full well, and we've covered it in detail lots of times about how you were targeted, and you've been vindicated multiple times over. Maria was asking about, I'm not sure if you're across the story about Damien Richardson. Do you know about the alleged Hitler wave and
I heard
that?
that.
Yep.
I heard that today, but I haven't seen any stories about that. Yep.
Yeah, so apparently he was at a talk, and he was talking about the media, gaslighting and targeting them, and about speech and all that, and it was done in jest. during that talk, he was even talking about, being against the views of Nazis and that, but because he gave that as a sort of tongue-in-cheek gesture at the end of it, it was like a, up yours to the media, and that's where he got done by it. But it's just this is cancel culture and just being targeted, isn't it? This whole idea of that a salute in jest and humor and comedy can get you in jail these days, Bruce.
And he hasn't, he has been politically targeted as well here, because of his political views. He's like me, he's a government critic. So they took literally, whereas had he been government sympathetic, he would never even face charges. We have a two-tier.
Exactly right. And from what I hear, his great-grandfather or grandfather actually fought in the war against the Nazis. So, you know what I mean? Like all this sort of, this just BS, mate, to be honest.
And I'm a free speech absolutist anyway.
That's right.
Even
Absolutely.
if he meant it, I would say, look, I disagree with you, but if that's your view, well, there's no harm in hearing it. Because if you allow some sort of overarching body to decide what you're allowed to say, then people like us will be banned, and they're trying. It's not we can't trust the government to decide what is acceptable speech and what isn't, because we know how they'll weaponize it against us.
Yep.
All right. So let's keep moving, shall we?
We shall.
So that was Tommy. Now, believe it or not, here's more government overreach. Update on last week's story where we discussed how the government is mooting or proposing to reduce the speed limits on signposted rural roads from a default 100 to a default 70 kilometres an hour. And the reason for that is for Sicherheit. It's for your safety. So unless the road is certified and signposted as safe at above 70, that's the speed you've got to go on it. So it's for your own safety. Because now, rather than fixing the potholes, no, which would be a whole other solution to this, right? But it turns out that that's not the whole story, because that very report also discusses the carbon emissions reduction benefits that such a speed limit reduction would have. And here's what the article said. So amid a surge in road deaths, the Albanese government is weighing up how much to cut rural speed limits, but it has been criticised for factoring carbon emissions reduction into the decision. Okay? All right, so let's look into that. So even if let's address the premise of that, and that is, no, they're not doing it for CO2. They're doing it for our safety, and they're doing it because there's been a surge in road deaths. Well, has there? So here's a graph of Australian road fatalities over the last, 45 something years. So that's from mid-70s up till now. So let's call it 50 years. So you see this steady decline downwards in road fatalities ever since I've been a motorist. But that story, or that graph, ends nearly 10 years ago. So I had to separately find a chart to fill in the rest. So here's the bit from 2014 up till now. So this fills in the rest of it. So this has been the road fatality numbers for the last 10 years. Where's the surge, Mark?
Yeah, I don't see it. But I guess if you compared that to the graph you had before, it would still be on the downward, or it was a downward track and then leveled out. Is that's what I see?
There'd be almost nothing visible at the end there. So
no, it'll just be flat, wouldn't it?
So the road fatalities in Australia have gone from nearly 4,000 40 odd years ago to just a bit over 1,000 now. So what that means is that all the low-hanging fruit has been picked. So they've eliminated the worst drink driving, the worst dangerous vehicles. We've added in safety systems, etc., etc.
Mhm.
So we've eliminated 75% of the road fatalities that we used to get. So to make any further gains is going to be incrementally more difficult because we've already done the easy stuff. But the premise is that we've got a surge in road deaths. So for your safety, we've got to cut the default limit by 100 down to 70. That's almost a third.
You wish they'd you kind of just wish they'd be truthful, Bruce. Just from the word go, to just save any sort of hassles. At least people know where they're starting. They really just want the end goal is really just they want you on bicycles in your 15-minute cities, and they don't want you in a motor vehicle that can go 100 or 110 on the freeway or 70k roads. They literally just want you on bicycles or walking pace in your 15-minute cities. And the only way that you can get between cities is if you have enough social credit, or carbon credits are good, then you can maybe be able to jump on a shuttle to another city, Bruce. But anyway, I wish they'd just come out and say that, Bruce. I just wish they'd come out and say that.
No, it's for your safety, Mark, and
for das Allgemeinwohl,
for the greater good. Now, I've shown that really doesn't hold up, and it especially doesn't hold up when you consider this additional factor, because those are absolute numbers. So 10 years ago in the 1200s, last year in the 1200s. But what's happened to the population over those 10 years? The Australian population is up over 14%. So there's been effectively no increase in the road toll, when on a per capita basis, it should have gone up 14% if nothing changed.
Yeah, that's right.
So not only I can't see a surge, but factoring in the increasing population, it looks like the numbers are still going down.
Yeah, so, which is pretty amazing, really, considering,
For the government to tell us that they want to reduce our travel speeds for our safety is misinformation. And so I'm going to assume that Julia Inman-Grant's onto this already.
Yeah. You censors to see numbers drop off all the social media right now. That's an interesting question there from Dival, though. Do they input commercially used vehicle accidents in that graph? Is it all combined? Do motor vehicles and commercial? Yeah,
that's total fatalities. That's right. That's total fatalities. Yeah. Okay. Now, governments have a history of explicitly lowering speed limits to save fuel, because Nixon did it in the 70s in response to what was called the Arab oil crisis, when fuel imports to the US were drastically reduced for political reasons. So he dropped their open road speed limit from 70 to 55. So that's 112 kilometres an hour down to 89. And that was a temporary measure for the oil crisis in the early 1970s. It was a measure that they kept, by the way, for 21 years, which is rather a long time to have a temporary measure in place, isn't it?
Well, it's a bit like what was the one that we've got in Australia that they still haven't released? You're probably going to talk into that, will you?
No, I'm not, but you make me think of, I still go into towns in Victoria and there's signs up that say permanent water-saving measures are in place. Why? What if it rained a lot last year? Why are they permanent?
Yeah. Wasn't it like a luxury car tax or something? Wasn't it some sort of car tax?
Yes. Yes, we did have that. We did have that. Now, I might be a bit hard on Nixon there for saying that his temporary measure went on for 21 years. When in fact that's not the worst example, because at the same time, Nixon temporarily suspended the US dollar's convertibility to gold. In fact, he delinked the US dollar and the rest of the world from gold about the same time. And that's still in place 54 years later. So I guess arguing that Nixon's fuel saving speed reduction measure lasting 21 years was excessive is missing the point when we notice that his delinking the dollar from gold's still in place 54 years later.
Yeah, you got to love those temporary measures, don't you, mate?
And I've seen the clip. I announced temporarily the suspension, blah blah blah, which means it's time for friend of the channel Milton Friedman to get another run.
Oh, I haven't had Milton on for a little bit, have we? I don't know if we've had him on for a bit.
Yeah, well, he's dead, Mark. That's the problem.
So he used to bring him up a bit. There was someone else he used to bring up. Who was the other person that he's like about?
Thomas Sowell gets a fair few runs.
Soul always gets a good. Yeah, does get a regular run.
They were two great economists, both of them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we're still on the old government overreach section. So what we've got here is a shocking example of both government overreach and of destroying the village to save it. And that comes from Canada. And we mentioned that at the start.
Mm-hmm.
So that's this story. So yesterday, Canadian authorities slaughtered 400 live, fit, healthy ostriches. And they did it to protect public and animal health, according to them.
Mm.
So here's the details. 11 months ago, 2 dead birds at a Canadian ostrich farm tested PCR positive for bird flu. 11 months ago. So according to the story, within 41 minutes, the Canadian government ordered the euthanasia of all the birds.
Yep.
So within 41 minutes of getting a positive PCR, they ordered that all the other birds be killed. But a court stayed the order. So before that order was carried out, the farm owners took it to court. And in fact, for the best part of the last year, this has been going through the courts. And it got all the way up to the Supreme Court of Canada, where the owners were fighting to block this euthanasia order. And the Supreme Court met and said, we're not going to hear the case. I don't know what the grounds were, but it's a variant of the old no standing thing. So the owners did not get to argue their case in the highest court in the land. So immediately that the court had said, okay, we're not going to take this case on, then the Canadian government swept in yesterday, nearly 12 months after the 2 birds died with positive PCRs, and killed the lot. They killed all the other birds. And they did this to protect the health of people and animal health.
Mm-hmm.
So just understand that. There were 2 PCR tests almost a year ago. And remember, PCRs have a huge false positive rate.
Yep.
We are now 11 months later. All the other birds are fit and healthy. So either the PCR tests were faulty or all of these birds have been exposed and survived.
Mm-hmm.
So they are not going to get avian flu from now on. Now, almost by definition, there is no flu in that flock because they've all had it and they're immune, so they cannot get it again. Yep. And remember, if there was genuinely bird flu in this ostrich farm, it was shat in by ducks or whatever flying over it, because the natural reservoir for avian flu is wild birds flying around. So even if this isolated farm, and this wasn't a food bird farm, this was a research facility, so they weren't sending birds out. And, you know, pro tip, ostriches aren't flying birds either. They're not going to fly out. So after 11 months after the birds had proved that they were, in the very least, survivors of or not infected at all, the government swept in and killed the lot. Killed the lot. And they did it for their safety.
Yep. Für ihre Sicherheit.
This is what Dr. Byron Bridle wrote to sum it up, because it's very good. He said, the most hypocritical aspect of this is that the people responsible for the deaths of hundreds of valuable, healthy ostriches that were almost certainly virus-free, prove me wrong, likely let their own kids play on beaches and parks that are routinely populated by ducks, geese and seagulls, and stipple painted with the feces of these birds that serve as natural reservoirs for the virus.
Mm.
And that's the point. You will never eliminate, if this virus exists, you'll never eliminate it because you've got a natural reservoir and a natural spread mechanism.
Mm.
You can't quarantine a farm, including the airspace above it through which migrating ducks fly.
Mm. Yeah.
And
May as well just kill
they
everything, eh?
They also showed, just to add to the utter stupidity of it, after they'd slaughtered those birds and they shot them, believe it or not, they just left them lying out in the open or under tarps for more than a day. And apparently there are photographs of vultures feeding on the carcasses.
Mm.
Vultures are wild birds and they do fly.
Mm.
So if that's true, if they genuinely thought these were infected birds in a risk, why the hell did they allow wild birds to feed on them after they shot them?
Mm. Mm.
It's just crazy.
Yeah, and I saw something from Gail about driving the utes around and there after that culled them as well. And another comment earlier before when we first started, when you mentioned this, there's something like 900 bullets for 200 and something birds. So they weren't very good at their job either.
Yeah, there must have been a better way of doing it because the ostrich has got a pretty small head and shooting him's not going to be easy, is it?
No. Yeah. But it's just that same old, this whole, when I first saw that story and I thought 11 months later and these birds are still healthy, you can see that they've got the bales around them, they've quarantined them, they did everything right. This whole stay was in place for 11 months. They're all still healthy and going, yet they, just to make a point, just for principle, they decided to go ahead. And that's all it was about, to make an example. It's just, and this is this whole thing I was, trying to alert people about this amendment to the Emergency Management Act here in South Australia, how they've put it on steroids. This allows them to do this sort of stuff on steroids, and not just under a state of emergency, but a period of alert, a state of alert, not even an emergency, Bruce. So trying to let South Australians know that this is a massively draconian bill that Liberal and Labor and Greens put through, and the only one that spoke up against it was Sarah Game, who's obviously she's got her own party going, but one person out of the whole Legislative Council stood up to this whole draconian bill that will allow them to enact stuff like this.
Yep. Your government has the power to do this. They voted themselves that power as well. This is not a Canadian anomaly.
No. Nope.
Righto. Miscellaneous segment. So an update to last week's story where we reported that 2 US Navy aircraft had crashed whilst operating in the South China Sea. And that the official story was questionable. So Mr. T came out and said he thought it was probably bad fuel because these were both twin-engined aircraft. So to get them both to go down, you'd need 4 engine failures, not just one on each aircraft. So you need 2 on each aircraft. They were totally different types of aircraft. So they didn't collide. They were on different missions. They weren't in the same place, and they most likely refueled at different points in the ship. And even if they did take on faulty fuel, the US Navy knows about contaminated fuel. They've been working at sea for 100 years, and they have extensive checks to prevent it. And the other thing is you never launch one fighter. One of these was an FA-18 fighter. Fighters are always launched in pairs, at least. What happened to the other fighter? We haven't heard anything about it. So surely it would have had the same bad fuel exposure. So we've had US Navy refuelers say this whole story stinks. We don't believe it. And they've asked themselves, is this really a Chinese attack? Do the Chinese have some sort of EMP or electrical weapon that allows them to disable aircraft at a distance? And remember, this is in the South China Sea. This is in China's backyard. And China's now officially denied that they're involved. And I can't remember who said it, but the basic rule is never believe anything until it's officially denied.
Yep.
Well, China's officially denied that they did this, and they've doubled down on their denial by saying that they think the story that they did it is a conspiracy. So not only have they denied it, but they've called it a conspiracy. So there's two reasons to believe that it's true.
A bit like the Russiagate.
Like everything, don't believe anything till it's been officially denied. And I did look up who that quote came from, but I can't remember. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Must be on the large language models too much, Bruce. What's going on there?
Yeah, well, I can't now that I'm grokking everything. I can't remember.
all those decades of reading books, mate. It's all out the window.
Yeah, well, it's permanent. Changes are permanent, aren't they?
That is a worry. That is a worry. I've got no hope then.
Nobody's got any hope, I'm afraid.
And Maria goes, did the batteries go flat on the helicopter? Yeah, well, that too. Yeah, that too.
All right. So moving along. So previously we've noted how one of the first things that woke me up to the whole governments are lying about everything was noticing that they were lying about things in the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And the first thing I did was notice that there were massive amounts of very expensive hardware at every base that I spotted down on in Baghdad. And that sort of opened my eyes to the fact that war is a very profitable business. So, for example, when my bus helicopter spotted down at this base in Baghdad, just looking out the window, just in this one photo, there's 10 Chinook helicopters there, and there's a couple of Apache attack helicopters as well. So just in that one photo, there's 10 Chinooks. And by the way, that's about, in current terms, that's about $1 billion worth of helicopters. And I would have seen the same image at 5 other bases that I stopped, because used to travel around Baghdad in helicopters almost like a bus route, like the Circle Line. You'd get on and get off where you wanted. So the other 3 or 4 or 5 bases that I spotted down at, they all look the same. And that's just a picture out one window. If you look out the other window, it's the same picture on the other side. So it suddenly opened my eyes to the fact that war is extremely expensive and therefore it's extremely profitable. So that's a motive to have wars, isn't it? And we've discussed that before.
Yep.
Now, this story illustrates another way that wars can be profitable. And it talks about Gaza, and it says that somewhere around 80% of the structures and buildings and services in Gaza have been destroyed in the bombing in the last 18 months or whatever it is.
Yep.
But this story said good news that a whole range of countries, European, Arab, Canada, the United States, etc., have said they are willing to contribute to the massive reconstruction effort, which they say is going to be $70 billion. So again, not only has all that expensive weaponry been used, which is profitable for the makers of the weaponry, but now we've got reconstruction efforts, which again are going to be worth billions and billions of dollars, all just in Gaza. Now, prior to that, what sort of business could you set up that would earn you $70 billion in the Gaza Strip? I can't think of one. So here we go. That's what they did here. So that I saw that story and I thought, okay, there's another way that wars can be profitable, the rebuilding afterwards. And we hear the same stories from Ukraine. They're already the big companies, your Schlumbergers and so forth, KBRs, are talking about how they'll rebuild it afterwards.
Well, during the Ukraine thing, when that was in the early days, I heard see the report, obviously, that BlackRock was looking at heavily getting involved in coordinating the rebuilding of Ukraine, and obviously, and then I made a bit of a joke about the fact that they are also heavily, BlackRock's also heavily invested and funded in arms manufacturing. So they get also all Raytheon, all those sort of ones. So all the people that are invested in those companies assisted in blowing up the cities, and then they get then they go in and help rebuild it. But from a bit of follow up there, I think BlackRock's pulled out of it. So it just seems funny that the UN's involved. But watching a few videos, all this, the monetary side of things, all this, the BlackRock and Vanguard and all that have got something like 30 trillion plus, under management, but it all kind of goes back up towards the Bank of International Settlement and the International Monetary Fund and the United Nations. They're all intertwined and intertangled. So, and it's deliberately done that way to confuse people about where all this is heading.
Yep, I agree with you 100%. So, yes, size. Let's move on.
Let's get back into it.
This is just a super quickie, but I clicked past this story in Spanish somewhere, which was about Charlie Kirk. So I don't know what it said, but I did notice the word Occident in the Spanish subtitles, and the English translation was Charlie Kirk and his call to defend the traditional values of the West. And I thought, that word Occident, I wonder what it means, because you and I used to live, I used to live in Adelaide, and you still do. And there used to be a big billboard on Green Hill Road, which had a company called Occidental Life. Do you remember that? It was some sort of insurer. So there was that word, Occident, Occidental. And I thought, what is that? And I looked it up, and the Occident is actually the opposite of the Orient. So, the eastern end of the world, the Asian end is called the Orient, and the opposite end, the western end, is called the Occident.
Oh, well, there you go.
Just a fun fact.
Well, there you go. A very quick fun fact. That's very interesting.
Now, zombie.
Here we go. Ready for the backlash. Ready for the backlash again.
Yet more gender pay gap BS this week, with this story telling us that 20% of men and 30% of women would consider not working for a company with a gender pay gap. Well, that's fine, but there's no such thing as a gender pay gap, so the story has no basis. They're writing about smoke, and the journalist, although it was probably written by AI and a journalist probably never went near it, could have very quickly affirmed that by simply asking the groks, is it legal to pay men and women different pay rates for the same work in Australia? And I did, and we've talked about this before. But the answer is no. If men and women are performing the same work, they must get the same pay rates. That's been in place for, I think, 16 or 17 years. And should there really be a gender pay gap, that means someone's committing a crime. So instead of writing about it in the newspaper, you should be reporting it to the police. But of course, when you delve into it, as we've noticed, they always fudge the data by comparing things other than pay rates. So they might look at what's your average take-home pay over a year, which ignores the fact that men might be working in higher tier jobs, or men might be doing more hours, more overtime, etc. They're typical way they fudge it. The gender pay gap is a zombie story that will not die. It does not exist. It's fraud. But here's a new wrinkle on it, because apparently the bad news for women doesn't stop with wages, because there's a gender pain gap as well. And I hadn't heard of that until this week.
A gender pain gap, okay.
But this week, the Victorian Premier, Jacinta Allen, released this study which said there's a gender pain gap. So women apparently suffer more pain than men. Now, the substance of the report explains why. So the survey undertaken by the Allen Labor government shows that close to half of all women are impacted by issues relating to their periods, pregnancy, birth and postnatal care, or conditions like endometriosis. So let me translate that. Nearly half of women are affected by women's problems. So, surprisingly, perhaps, not as many men are affected by women's problems as are women.
Go figure.
So once again, this is not a gender gap. This is an anatomy gap. If it's true, it's not caused by misogyny or anything systemic. It's caused by the fact that, cover your ears, Mark, men and women are different. And as a result, different health problems.
How dare you?
Right.
Yes.
Now, again, a quick trip to the Groks, where I asked the AIs, okay, do women in Victoria have their own women's hospitals? And the answer is yes, they do. There are specific public hospitals for women in Victoria, and I listed a number of them. And my next question was, okay, what about men? Are there any men's specific public hospitals in Victoria? And colour me shocked, there aren't.
Okay.
So we already have a system where there are public hospitals specifically for women, but none specifically for men.
Go figure. But so I'm still really confused, Bruce, because
Don't say it.
I'm going to gazump you.
No, we'll get Professor Kelly and Professor Murphy on the speed dial. We'll phone a friend.
Nice. What about the sex commissioner, the human? What is she? What is she? Even a she? I don't know. I'm not even allowed to name her as she now. Am I? I don't know.
Well, there's another rule for gender equity portfolios. They are always exclusively stacked with women. You'll notice.
Yes.
Okay. So, no, we're being told that there's this systemic problem where there's an equity gap and women aren't getting a fair deal because nobody cares about their pain and it's all because of gender. But I've just pointed out that women get their own hospitals and men don't. And if you add that to the fact that public health spending is generally higher for women than for men because of what we just talked about, they get more women's troubles. So therefore, of course, they're going to get more pain because they get more of everything related to women's business. But the government paints this as if this is some sort of systemic misogyny by labelling it a gender pain gap. Well, the implication is that this is the fault of discrimination. And who's discriminating? Well, it's got to be men. If it's not women, it's got to be the men that are doing it, right? But I've just shown you that women get more spent on them and have more hospitals. So having said all of that, why is the ABC publishing stories like this, which say that Victorian women have suffering that has worsened because our healthcare system is male-centric? So this is a healthcare system that has specific hospitals for women but not for men and spends more money on women than men, treating women's troubles, not men's troubles. So the ABC is either incompetent in publishing this story or dishonest, and I'm going to leave it up to you to speculate as to which it might be.
Well, yeah, that's very, very interesting. We'll see a lot of speculation there.
And again, note schizophrenically, the ABC has said it's a male-centered. Well, male is a sex. And aren't we talking about gender here?
Yeah, well, I'm confused. I think everybody in the world is now confused about sex and gender and what's up and what's down and all that sort of stuff. But, you know, it's really interesting, this segment, you know, the one that keeps coming back and it just never dies, the zombie segment, especially in relation to the gender pay gap in that. It's probably one of the only segments of our show that we've actually lost a viewer because of that. But anyway, yes.
Who did we lose?
Oh, that was quite a while ago. I mean, it was someone on the Substack that decided that they didn't like the conversation.
I'm shattered.
But anyway, you know, that's the way it is. It is an emotive topic talking about, you know, men and women and male and female and sex and gender. It's kind of, you know, it's enough to do anybody's head in, really.
I see Jack Nicholson screaming, "You can't handle the truth."
Yeah. Am I? How dare you?
And for people who are confused, here's a simple explanation. Sex is the plumbing and gender is the fields.
Mm,
Okay.
yep. Oh dear.
All right. Let's take it away with the Uzzies. And I'm sorry to say it's a gender story.
Oh my gosh. Just can't get away from it, can we?
So a BBC newsreader, and just looking across my sort of script says a BBQ newsreader. So let's take it as a BBC newsreader. It's apparently been sanctioned in the UK for on the fly not reading what the teleprompter script said in relation to this story and converting the words pregnant people into women when discussing pregnancy during the report. So that reporter fell foul of some sort of hate speech laws and was sanctioned. I don't know if they've lost their job yet, but they were sanctioned for doing that mental correction as they read the news story.
Yep. You won't make that mistake again. I wonder what sanctioned looks like.
Now, well, re-education camp, perhaps?
Yeah. Correctly
Retraining.
Yeah,
And I told you my answer to that, like, not quite the same story, but related. Back when I worked for SA Ambulance, they introduced a whole suite of these sort of compulsory training packages. And I did the Indigenous cultural awareness training, which I failed miserably, despite having attentively listened to the training package and answering the assessment questions correctly. It turned out I only scored 9% correct. So I was shattered. Anyway, I failed the module. And then I was told that I would have to resit the module. But I then proved that I had learnt from the module because I said I couldn't possibly reset it. I found it offensive. And I never did reset it.
Well, there you go. See? You just have to be offended these days, Bruce, to get our stuff.
Yes, offence is a weapon, apparently.
Offence paling used to rip them off to be a weapon, but anyway, offence.
I like it. That's Chesterton offence, I think you're talking about.
Yeah, I hear that too. Boom, 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 tish.
Now, here we go. This is almost the last story. If you want any further proof that the UK has fallen, and I doubt if you need it, this 100-year-old UK World War II veteran was interviewed on TV in the last couple of days in the UK because it's the eve of Remembrance Day. So it's 10th of November and tomorrow's the 11th, which was the date in 1918 when the guns fell silent on the Western Front. So he's not a World War I veteran. There's none of them left, but he's a World War II veteran and he's 100 years old. So he was being interviewed on TV and being asked about his experiences. And I've got to say, he went off script a little bit with his answer. So let me show you what he said.
What does Remembrance Sunday mean for you? What is your message?
My message is, I can see in my mind's eye those rows and rows of white stones of all the hundreds of my friends and everybody else that gave their lives for what? The country of today. No, I'm sorry. The sacrifice wasn't worth the result that it is now.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
What do you mean by that, though?
What we fought for, and what we fought for was our freedom. We find that even now it's downsight worse than what it was when I fought for it.
Oh, Alec, I'm sorry you feel like that, because I want you to know that all the generations that have come since, including me and my children, are so grateful for your bravery and all that for service personnel. And it's our job now, isn't it, to make it the country that you fought for. You absolutely
Exactly.
fought
That
for.
is it.
And we will do. We want to...
I'm so wonderful to know there are people like you that can spread the word around
we
amongst
will
our
do.
younger generation.
And I guarantee that everybody watching at home will be wanting you to send lots of love. We've got another little bit special thing for you, Alec. We've got the D-Day darlings here. Come on over, guys. You've got a little special present for him.
Ooh.
Come and give it if you can, to thank you for all your many brave years of service and others like you.
This is our album, Alec, and I know you love a lot of the songs on there. And this is the least we can do. This is such a small thing, but you know we love you so much, Alec.
And it's all signed for you there as
These
well.
young ladies are like my own daughters.
I love him. Hey?
Yep.
Bloody hell.
So there you go.
And,
What was the point? We don't have freedom. We fought for freedom, and now look what we got. Is basically what his answer is.
Yeah, we've talked about that on this show numerous times, and other commentators talk about it all the time, as the sacrifice that all the soldiers made during the Great War and the Second World War was all for naught, with the way the Western countries are going these days, and the tyrannical overreach and powers that the government's given themselves is absolutely shocking. And you know, Dival made a good point there, is that now the elderly, I think that's what he was referring to, have been targeted by genocide, because you know these you look at Canada, even with the maid system, you know, the assisted dying and all that sort of stuff is making these people you know, their life's worthless. They've given everything, watched their brothers and sisters in the fight being slaughtered, for what, right? For what? And you know, it's one of the reasons why I keep going. It's one of the reasons I'm part of, you know, Australians for Better Government. We look at ways that we can, you know, obviously improve the vote, make a difference, you know, have citizen initiated referendums, get people angry enough to do something about it. And look, I really encourage people, you know, to at least, if they have the capacity during work and that tomorrow, to join in on the Remembrance Day. That's just you know, that poor man. I mean, he's just so bloody right, though, isn't he? He was just summed it up in a nutshell.
What was the point?
Yeah, what was the point? Absolutely, what was the point of all that senseless slaughter for where we are now? Yep.
And to finish up, another excellent cartoon from Johannes Leek, commenting on the recent divisions in the Liberal Party and the welcome swing away from the net zero madness, but not from the party. It's members leaving the Liberal Party and heading over to what may be Australia's only mainstream Conservative party left, and that's One Nation.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's pretty much where it's at the moment. I mean, 200 members resigned from the Liberal Party in South Australia, and they're just like, yeah, still don't know. And as I said, I won't pull back on my. I know that, you know, we've talked about this before. Got a lot of respect for Alex Antics and the likes of him, even Ben Hood and people like that here in South Australia. But as I said, I'm not going to hold back in my pushback on the Liberal Party. Is absolutely cooked. It is obviously on nearly beyond repair. So totally fracture, or they have to have a massive explosion of a fight to get rid of the infiltrators.
I can see a value in the right sort of senators in the Liberal Party, Alex Antics being a great example. Although, of course, they're vulnerable because they don't get pre-selected when their term comes up if they've acted as genuine Conservatives.
Like Gerard.
Yep. But I can't see the point in House of Representatives Liberals at all. You know, they're Labor light, and they're desperately appealing to people who aren't going to vote for them anyway. And their true base is deserting them in droves, and good thing too. I want to see the ashes of the Liberal Party burnt down and salted to allow a genuine Conservative Party to rise in its place.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, and when will they wake up, brother? When will they wake up?
And we need to pad it out for another 90 seconds to make the 2 hours. How are we going to do that?
Oh, you know, I always come good. Yeah.
Oh, you're going to rescue me. Thank you.
You know, I always come good. But anyway, I was just going to finish off while you were talking. A couple of things were coming up, and I thought just because someone mentioned it, there's actually been an extension to the exposure draft on the Competition and Consumer Industry Codes, Cash Acceptance Regulation 2025, that was meant to expire, but because they had technical issues on their website, and I had it shared with me, it was actually from Citizens Party are doing a lot behind the scenes on raising awareness with that, but it's pretty much to protect cash movement has been hijacked by Finance Minister Jim Chalmers, heading off the call to legalise cash. Is introducing regulation with misleading title mandating cash acceptance. Now, people may be aware of that it's been extended for submissions. If people want to jump on the Substack just to get a bit of an idea, this is on my Substack. I put it a submission in myself, but so people can still do that, and there's some information about how people can do that, because the more people do that, the better, obviously. So if you've got the opportunity to do that. The other thing I wanted to share, Bruce, while you were talking, because we talk about digital IED a bit and everything else like that. Free New Zealand, who does some great work, who've done some great work over COVID and that, pushing back and that, they've just had an interview with Catherine Austin Fitz and Andrew Bridgen and Alex Newman about digital ID, and that's on the Free New Zealand Substack as well. But I just wanted to quickly play this little thing from people. You remember our old mate here. You remember him. I just wanted to play this little bit. Oh, yeah, here we go. Let's just play this a bit because it sort of, talks about some of the things we've been talking about.
Our analysis on CBDC, in particular for the use of general use, we tend to establish the equivalence with cash. And there is a huge difference there. For example, in cash, we don't know, for example, who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today. A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also, we will have the technology to enforce that. Those two issues are extremely important, and that makes a huge difference with respect to what cash is.
I very much recommend.
So there you go. I recommend watching that that on the Substack for Free New Zealand. They talk into that extensively, but you can hear him saying there that obviously looking at they want us to track every dollar you spend, and they put legislation in place, and they want to be able to control that, and they have the technology to do that. So there's so many discussions that could be had. The main thing is that people just need to be aware and do your own research and start listening. And you and I talk about it a lot. You do a lot of research in regards to this, and to give people as much information as possible. But just for me to finish up, I had something shared with me during the week. Was Aldous Huxley. I had an old YouTube video of his shared to me, and I was doing a bit of sending it around a bit during the week. So I'm just going to share this tab and just play this little quick clip.
Well, to start with, I think this kind of the dictatorship of the future, I think will be very unlike the dictatorships which we've been familiar with in the immediate past. I mean, take another book prophesying the future, which was a very remarkable book, George Orwell's 1984. Well, this book was written at the height of the Stalinist regime and just after the Hitler regime. And there he foresaw a dictatorship using entirely the methods of terror, the methods of physical violence. Now, I think what is going to happen in the future is the dictators will find, as the old saying goes, that you can do everything with bayonets except sit on them. That if you want to preserve your power indefinitely, you have to get the consent of the ruled. And this they will do partly by drugs, as I foresaw in Brave New World, partly by these new techniques of propaganda. They will do it by bypassing the sort of rational side of man and appealing to his subconscious and his deeper emotions and his physiology even, and so making him actually love his slavery. I mean, I think this is the danger, that actually people may be in some ways happy under the new regime. Well,
and there was my comment to that it seems like around 85% of the population, in my opinion, are about that stage, Bruce. So there you go. They have to be get him to love his slavery, Bruce. Yep. And 60 years ago, Aldous Huxley had it right.
He wrote Brave New World Order, didn't he?
Yeah, Brave New World. Yep, Brave New World Order. He was very predictive, wasn't he? And here we are, 60 years later, and you look at what was just been enacted on the population, and look, 85% have gone back to business as usual, and aren't even interested in the kind of legislation and bills and everything that are being put in place to control people even further. So, and that's why we do what we do, and the lovely people that join us on the show every week come on board to find out more, to stay informed, and because they're very much aware as well, and welcoming to all new viewers as well. So yeah, thanks guys. It's been a great chat again. It was definitely coming through thick and fast with everybody's little responses there. So another great show, my dear friend, and hope you have an amazing Remembrance Day tomorrow. And yeah, definitely got to remember the people that sacrificed everything for where we are now, and they'd all be rolling in their graves, I think, unfortunately. Absolutely.
Has to get worse before it gets better.
Yes, it seems like it. Yep, but definitely in Australia. The UK's starting to get there and push back, but I think we've still got a little way to go.
Yep.
God bless you, my brother. Thank you, everybody. God bless Australia. Have a great evening.
Cheers, Mark, and cheers, Alex.
To fight again for that already burned, he was driven towards the flames. All the signs are there for all to see, the signs we've lost our way. When we jail our heroes and applaud our villains and turn our hearts away, like a silent choir, too scared to sing the anthem of a braver day. A song our children may never hear, the ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix. A song our children may never hear, the ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix.